Okay, sixth grade, this is video 2 for lesson 11-9. We're going to start off with two definitions here, and I want to take some time to really explain these definitions so that way this diagram makes sense, and I have a feeling that you might not have seen at least the top definition in a future in a previous class. So this first definition here, remote interior angles, those are going to be the two non-adjacent interior angles for each exterior angle. Okay, so if we look down here, I have a triangle drawn with the interior angles of 1, 2, 3. And then you'll notice I kind of extended this bottom side, and that created an exterior angle of angle 4. So that's your definition of exterior angle. It's an angle formed by a side and an extension of an adjacent angle, okay? The remote interior angles, this idea of non-adjacent means not next to. So down here in our diagram, angle 4 and angle 1, those are adjacent angles because they share this side. So the two non-adjacent interior angles would be angle 2 and angle 3. So it just depends. Wherever your exterior angle is formed, it's going to be the two angles that are further away from that exterior angle. Okay, and this relationship between interior angles and exterior angles helps create a rule that we can use to solve for unknown measures. So this is our second rule for the lesson, and this rule states that the measure of an exterior angle of a triangle is equal to the sum of the measures of its remote interior angles. So we have the same figure drawn here in example 2. What that means is the measure of angle 4 equals the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3. And if you don't take time to memorize that rule, as you can see here in example 2, I'm about to explain two ways to get to an answer. Rule 2 that we just went over is going to be much less work. So let's take a look. In the diagram, measure of angle 2 is 68 degrees and the measure of angle 3 is 42 degrees. We want to find the exterior angle, the measure of angle 4. So we can just jump straight to this rule because it gives us enough information. It wants us to find the exterior angle measure. It gives us the two remote interior angle measures. So we're going to add the measure of angle 2, which is 68 degrees, plus the measure of angle 3, which is 42 degrees. Which gives us the measure of angle 4 equaling 110 degrees. But let's say you did not have that rule memorized on a future quiz or test, and you want to still try to get to an answer. There is an alternate way to get to it, but again, as you can see, there's a lot more work involved. You have to use properties of angle relationships we learned in the past lesson 11-8, and what you're going to do is use supplementary angles to help you. So this is an alternate method. We know that the sum of all the three interior angles is 180 degrees. So that means the measure of angle 1 plus 68 plus 42 degrees, which they gave us above, has to be 180 degrees. So if we use that, and that's rule number 1 from video number 1. So if we use that idea, that means we have 110 degrees left over, and 180 minus 110 gives us 70 degrees. So that measure of angle 1 would have to be 70 degrees. Now, had you known rule number 2 the whole time, we would have been able to stop here and find our answer. But remember, we have forgotten that rule, so this is an alternate approach. So we just found that the measure of angle 1 is 70 degrees. And again, we did that by using the idea of the sum of all three interior angles is 180, because the sum of a triangle's angle measures is 180 degrees. And we found that missing angle measure. Now we'll notice that angle 4 and angle 1 are supplementary, which means they would also equal 180 degrees. So the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 4 is 180 degrees. So 70 plus what number is 180 degrees, which would give you the same answer. Okay, so it really does seem like it just loops in circles if you don't take time to remember rule 2. Okay. Example 3, though, there's really no other way that we can approach this because they don't actually give us angle measures. They give us expressions to represent angle measures. So we would have to use rule number 2 for example 3. And this comes from the Try It on page 699. So we want to find the measure of the exterior angle shown. However, we can't just say the remote interior angles plus the added together equals the exterior angle, because each of those angle measures has a variable representing an unknown. So in order for us to even be able to start this problem, in order for us to even be able to find the angle measure, we have to find what x equals first. But we still use the same rule. We know that 7x minus 1 plus 8x plus 8 equals 16x. And we get that again from rule 2. The remote interior angles added together equal its exterior angle. When we set it up, you can write the parentheses with your work, but at this point, there's no distributive property, there's nothing else happening, so the parentheses we can just ignore. So I rewrote it again without the parentheses. Before we can solve, remember, we want to simplify both sides. So remember that expression that we used, clean up and pack up before you move. So 7x and 8x are like terms. That becomes 15x. Negative 1 plus 8 or 8 minus 1 are like terms. They simplify to a positive 7. So we clean up this left-hand side by combining like terms. Now we have variables on both sides. So I'm going to move the 15x to the other side and combine it with the 16x. So I can get variables on one side and constants on the other. So I subtract 15x. That kind of looks like a very sloppy V. There we go, 15x. And we get 7 equals x. So that means our value of x is 7. Don't stop there. We haven't actually answered the question. We haven't found the exterior angle shown. And the exterior angle is 16x. So now we want to replace x with 7 since that's its value. And we multiply for, I forgot to box that in, 112 degrees. Okay, so again, this one doesn't really have an alternate method that you can use without incorporating extra variables, which you don't want to do. You haven't learned that yet. You'll learn that in Algebra 1. So you have to use rule number 2, and then you have to use a lot of properties of equations here. So this is a great review of Chapter 7, which I stated in the first video for this lesson, is a very important concept in algebra. So, and as always, if you have questions that these videos did not answer, please email me, but that was the final video for today's lesson.